Hello and welcome to the Natural Wellness Tips Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Jennifer Shaw. Super excited to be here with you. Just finished my workout and my hair's all wet. So if you're watching me on YouTube, sorry, my hair's always wet when I'm recording these on YouTube. It's funny. But yeah, today I have a topic that's kind of like just in the moment for me. And I think it's an important conversation to have, right? Of like the idea of disappointment and what disappointment is and how we handle disappointment. Because we're going to get disappointed in life, right? Like things aren't going to go the way we perfectly plan them. And some people are like me and they like plan everything. It's like down to the T. And when things don't go as planned, it can be really hard. And we have to communicate really well with those we love. We have to be understanding. And God, and it's freaking hard because you know, I think the thing with disappointment is it's always tied to expectations. And expectations are one hell of a thing because there's something we make up in our head, right? So we have expectations of how a situation should go or how somebody should respond to that situation. And really, it's just like, it's made up. It's not like a real life thing. Like we just assume that because this is how we envision something happening, it's how it should happen, right? Like you map out your day and you're like, everything's going to go smooth. I'm going to get up and I'm going to journal and I'm going to meditate and I'm, going to work out and I'm going to do my work. And, if you have kids, you're going to get them to school, get them home from school. Everything's going to go peachy keen. They're going to do good in school. Like, we have these like preconceived notions of how life should go. And even the biggest things, like we have this expectation from society of like when we're supposed to get married, when we're supposed to buy a house, like should you start your own business or should you stay in the school district and work for the next 30 years because you have a pension even though you're miserable? Like what these expectations we put on each other, like you're dating someone for a long time, and how often do you get asked like, oh, when are you guys getting married? And then the moment you get engaged, when's the wedding? And then the moment you get married, when are you having babies? Like, why does all of these like expectations have to be put on us from both ourselves and those around us, right? Like, it's exhausting. And then things don't go quite as planned. So maybe it's something big, like you and your husband get married and you're like, it's time to start a family. And that doesn't go as smooth as you want it to. Or maybe it's a trip that you're supposed to take and all of a sudden last minute those plans have to change. And, or, you wanted to make it to a yoga class and you got stuck in traffic so you didn't make it. Like there's disappointment on so many different levels in our world. And it's something that we all deal with. But I think what I want to stress about disappointment is there's really only two things we can do within disappointment. One, we can try our best to not have expectations, right? So we can try our best to not have expectations, which is easier said than done, but we can try our best. And two, we can control our response. Instead of, and I use the word response very specifically because many times we react to a situation instead of taking a minute, slowing it down and responding, right? So then reactions tend to be a little more aggressive, a little more emotional, a little more hot-headed, right? Like those are reactions, where response is, I understand what my expectation was. I understand that is not going to happen. Let me communicate that with the people that need to know, right? So taking a few deep breaths, it's the best thing you can do in situations where you're disappointed. Step aside, take a few deep breaths, and figure out what's actually happening here. Is the disappointment from an expectation that you didn't communicate with other people? Is the disappointment from an expectation that was communicated but still didn't happen, right? Like where is the disappointment from? Is the disappointment just in someone else's behavior? That's allowed too. You're allowed to be disappointed when you think someone should act one way and they don't, right? Like you're completely allowed to be disappointed in that realm. And that's important to pause and give yourself permission to be disappointed, right? Like it's okay to feel feelings. Uh, I've been told that, if you want to feel any feelings, any frequency of feelings, you can feel them. Please feel all the feels. But you're in control of whether you feel them for 2 minutes or 2 years, right? So maybe a relationship ends. And that's something I'm, just went through is I got divorced. And the relationship ended. It's like a death. You lose that person who's been, one of the closest people in your life for a long period of time, and you lose their friends and their family and this whole group of people. So it's like a death, right? And there's disappointment because it didn't work the way you expected it to. Like we don't go into marriage being like, oh, this is going to be super fun for a couple years and then I'm going to get divorced. Can't wait. Like that's not why we go into marriage, right? So there's disappointment when something like that fails. And I guess I don't want to use the word fails. There's disappointment when something like that doesn't turn out the way we expect it to. Because divorce is not a failure. Divorce is a lesson, a learning process, a learning curve. Like you learn more about yourself. You learn more about what you want out of relationships. You learn more about what you're able to give in relationships. Like divorce is relationships, marriage, they're all learning processes, and there's disappointment that comes with all of that, right? Like maybe your spouse wasn't the person that you really thought they were. Maybe you two didn't meld the way that you thought you did, right? Like those are big disappointments, but it's how we handle it, right? So you're allowed to be sad over those things, and please, you should be sad. You should cry. You should feel the feels. You should talk to a counselor. You should talk to your family and friends. Like you should get that all off your chest. Like there was many days that I was like crying on my yoga mat in Shavasana. Like everybody just knew I was going through some shit, and they were like, Jen's having a day. Like having a day. Like that is what it was, right? But embracing the disappointment and realizing that it was really deep in my expectations of what was supposed to come from that marriage, allowed me to release, like let it go, just allowed me to release some of the energy around that disappointment and allowed me to move forward, right? And that's like a huge example, but like it could be something as simple as I had travel plans this week that are just a hot mess and everything's a disaster, and we're trying to figure out how to put the pieces back together from our crazy week that was supposed to be awesome. And it's disappointing, right? But it's because I had an expectation of what this week was supposed to be like. Obviously, flights booked and things, right? Like there's obviously an expectation, but like the only thing I can control is my reaction to this disappointment. I could be angry, I could be mean, I could be sad, I could be frustrated, and I have been all of those things this week, completely all of those things. But I also have been focusing on meditating and taking some deep breaths and realizing that there's responsibilities in life that we have to hold up. Things are going to happen. Sometimes they're going to happen more than you want them to in certain situations. But the only thing I can control is me and my reaction and my communication with other people. So finding forgiveness around the situation, around the expectations, around the disappointment, finding forgiveness and finding clear communication so that I'm communicating with the people involved. They know, one, how I feel, so I shouldn't hide how I feel about the situation. I should tell them how I feel, but I should do it in a constructive way instead of an angry way, right? Like if I can be constructive about it, then maybe we can figure out a plan B or a plan C, right? So like it's all about how we take what was handed to us and how we respond to it, right? So disappointment is going to happen. I think this is a super important lesson to teach your kids too. And someone really dear to me just did this really well with their daughter when she didn't get a part she wanted. And she basically told her, like, you know, you had an expectation that you were going to get that part. I'm really sorry you didn't. But look, you got a really great part and you're going to be great at it. So be sad, be frustrated. You have tonight, you know, wallow in it if you need to. But then tomorrow, you're going to be excited and you're going to congratulate your, theater mates and on their roles, and you're going to be excited for them, and you're going to embrace the role you've been given and be excited about it. So she taught her that she had expectations that weren't met, therefore she was disappointed. It's okay to be disappointed, it's okay to be sad, it's okay to be frustrated, but you're not allowed to stay there. Go ahead and move out of that and find gratitude for what you do have. I mean, that's a life lesson that some of us didn't learn till we were adults, and she's teaching her 12-year-old this, right? Like, think about how you could use this in raising your children, in communicating with your family, in communicating with your significant others, in communicating with your coworkers, your employees, your employer, your friends. Like, this expectation, disappointment, response cycle is so important to me. And it's really melded truly, especially in this last year. Like, I have completely changed in how I work through these things. I'm much less reactive. I'm much more responsive, responsible. You know, I'm a lot less emotional. I will show my emotions and express my emotions and let them be known. But for many years, I was kind of shunned away from showing my emotions. So that's kind of been like a challenge for me, like, to actually live in my emotions and feel them. Because for a few years there, I really was, whether or not I was directly told or told through behavior, that my feelings were not as important and I should keep them to myself. And that was my perception of the situation I was in. That's how I felt in the situation. So I'm learning this whole process, and I'm learning how to handle disappointment with more grace, with more ease, with more love, with more care, with more communication, so that the disappointment can turn quickly into a positive, right? The disappointment can change. And that is what is truly, truly important. It's all about slowing down, taking a few deep breaths, being okay with being in it for a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, a day, an hour, whatever you need, and then responding with clear, concise communication, expressing everything that you're feeling, but doing it in a place of, I want to fix this, not I want to dagger you and injure you because I'm disappointed by this situation, right? So how can you change that cycle for yourself? How can you show up as a better person for everyone in your life by handling your disappointments, by knowing that they all are seated in expectations? That's the truth of it. They're all seated in our expectations, or the expectations of those around us. So how can you change that? That is key. That is so key. And like I said, I have been struggling with what I was going to talk about this week, and this has just been on my mind, and I've had some things happening where I've had to, like, breathe through it and work through some disappointments and know that everything happens for a reason, whether or not I can understand that reason at the time. And just try and be with it. Just try. Yeah. So God, I hope this is helpful. I hope it spoke to somebody. Hope that somebody needed to hear this right now. So obviously there's essential oils I use when I'm disappointed to help me get through these things. One of my favorite oils for disappointment is Console. This is a doTERRA blend. I love the touch roller of Console. It's just really easy. I roll that right over my heart, on the inside of my wrists and behind my ears. And I Yeah, it's kind of like a warm hug when you're feeling super disappointed. It's a good one. Sometimes for me, anxiety comes through with my disappointment, and in that case, I'm grabbing a couple other essential oils. Let me grab them out of my purse because they're just always with me. So some of the other oils I'm grabbing when I'm feeling disappointed, I use sometimes Forgive, same place, like over my heart, inside my wrist. Peace, those two are really good. So Forgive, Console, Peace, like you can decide which one you need. And then Neroli, I take that one and I roll that on the outside of my arm. And that really helps if I'm having like that anxiousness around the disappointment. And diffuser wise, there's one blend that I really like. And I'm a very optimistic person in general, so that's probably why I'm like drawn to this one. But it's called the Optimist, and you do 3 drops of Peace, doTERRA Peace. You do 2 drops of doTERRA Ylang Ylang. You do 1 drop of doTERRA Siberian Fir and 1 drop of doTERRA Grapefruit, and it's called the Optimist. So it's a really good one to kind of like uplift your mood. And another one is Let It Go. So you do 2 drops clary sage, 2 drops Douglas fir, 2 drops wild orange. So it just helps you release those emotions. So those are just some of my favorites that I grab when I'm feeling disappointed. I am like slathered in oils when I'm working through disappointment. And trying to release the expectations. Sometimes I use, like right now I have lemongrass and Siberian fir in the diffuser to help me release my expectations. So that's another really good one to just help you release if you're kind of holding on to some expectations. So those are some of my go-to favorites. Like totally love those ones. But yeah, there's so many different ones that you can do for sure. But yeah, if you want to grab any of those essential oils, let me get the link for you. You can always follow me on Instagram, natural_wellness_tips. And from there, you can DM me and I can help you get started and find the oils that are right for you. Or you can, hold on, why can I not find the one that I want? Trying to find a specific link for you. So it's, hold on, I'm almost there. So the link is bit.ly/NWT get oils. So bit.ly/NWT get oils. So if you have some oils that you wanted to grab from the ones that I just talked about, or just DM me. And if you have a moment when you are done with this episode, please do me a huge favor, leave a review. It helps other people get to hear this podcast, helps get that in front of them. So yeah, I really hope that my talk from the heart helped you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Namaste.